So now we are taking you to Lansing, Michigan, where the sentencing hearing for former USA gymnastics doctor Larry Nassar has begun. There are dozens of victims. They are expected to make statements. We want to warn you, though, at times the statements may cut out or the video may cut out. That's because some of these victims are still minors, and we want to protect their identity as a result. But let's listen in.
Larry Nassar's actions had already caused me significant anguish. But I hurt worse as I watched my father realize what he had put me through. My father and I did our best to patch up our tattered relationship before he committed suicide in 2016. Admittedly, my father was experiencing debilitating health issues. But had he not had to bear the shame and self-loathing that stemmed from his defense of Larry Nassar, I believe he would have had a fighting chance for his life. Larry Nassar wedged himself between myself and my family and used his leverage as my parents' trusted friend to pry us apart until we fractured. And fracture we did. My relationship with my mother is still marbled with pain, anger, and resentment. And for a long time, I told people that I did not have a family. I think it is important to note my relationship with the Nassar family after I accused him at age 12. A year or two passed from the time that I made the accusation, and our families began to spend time together again. I was around 14 years old when Stephanie began pressuring me to babysit the Nassar's 3 children. I responded with dismissive answers for a lengthy period of time before relenting. It was at this point that I began to feel brainwashed. At home, I was a liar, and when I was at the Nassars, either with my family or babysitting, it was as if I had never accused him. I felt I was losing my grip on reality. I started to question whether the abuse ever really happened. For my own sanity, I forced myself to walk through the abuse step by step, so I didn't forget that I was not a liar. It is to this that I credit my ability to recall the abuse so well throughout this process. As I continued to babysit for the Nassars, I started to become resolved to my purpose there. With 2 young girls in the home, I felt protective and that somehow my presence there would make a difference. For 7 years and several years into counseling, I cared for those children with all my heart. My detachment from my family forced me to search for grants, participate in post-traumatic studies, ask for sliding scales, and babysit for the Nassars to pay for my own counseling. When I look back now, I realize that my spirit was broken, lost, and confused. But then all I could think is that I needed to be there for those children in whatever way I could. It was not until I was 21 that I cut all ties with the Nassar family. The complex feelings of shame, disgust, and self-hatred brought me bouts of depression, anxiety, eating disorders, and other compulsive conditions. Sometimes I think it's hard for people to translate these generic terms into reality. For me, it was a girl crying on the floor for hours, trying not to rip out too much of her hair. For me, it was a girl wanting the pain to stop so badly that she woke up for months to the thought, I want to die. For me, it was a girl getting out her gun and laying it on the bed just to remind herself that she has control over her own life. For me, it was a girl that spent so much time trying to fix herself that she forgot what she actually enjoys doing. Sexual abuse is so much more than a disturbing physical act. It changes the trajectory of a victim's life, and that is something that no one has the right to do. Your Honor, with your permission, I would now like to address the defendant.
You may.
After my parents confronted you, they brought you back to my house to speak with me. Sitting on my living room couch, I listened to you tell me, no one should ever do that, and if they do, you should tell someone. Well, Larry, I'm here, not to tell someone, but to tell everyone. You convinced my parents that I was a liar. that you didn't strategically place lotion in the basement so you could beat your penis in my face while I hid. But I still get sick at the smell of that lotion. You convinced my parents that you didn't pull my feet into your lap, unzip your pants, and rub your erect penis against my bare skin. But I still flinch when my feet are near someone's lap. You convinced my parents that you didn't stick your fingers in my adolescent vagina. But I knew when it was time to use my first tampon, not to worry, because my hymen wasn't intact. You used my body for 6 years for your own sexual gratification. That is unforgivable. I've been coming for you for a long time. I've told counselors your name in hopes that they would report you. I have reported you to Child Protective Services twice. I gave a testament to get your medical license revoked. You were first arrested on my charges. And now, as the only non-medical victim to come forward, I testified to let the world know that you are a repulsive liar and that those treatments were pathetically veiled sexual abuse. Perhaps you have figured it out by now, but little girls don't stay little forever. They grow into strong women that return to destroy your world. Your Honor, there is no time that Larry Nassar can serve that will give me back those years with my family, or the time and energy I spent sorting out my anger, frustration, and confusion. But I can tell you this, our law does not do enough to prevent predatory acts, and often does not do enough to punish predators who have committed the hideous act of abusing a child. I can also tell you, Larry Nassar is a predator without boundaries. His patients weren't safe, his friends' children weren't safe, and even his own children weren't safe. If he is ever allowed to re-enter society, he will not hesitate to reoffend. We have all done our part to get to this point and will continue to do our part to combat the diseased societal thinking that kept 100+ victims quiet for decades. But right here, right now, it's your turn. I implore you to do your part. Make a statement that forces other predators to think twice. Keep Larry Nassar out of our communities. I ask for a minimum of 40 and a maximum of 125. Thank you.
Thank you. The system clearly failed you, and it has failed so many children, people without voices, but you certainly have grown into a beautiful, smart, intelligent woman who has a voice. This voice that you have just let out publicly will have that rippling effect to change legislation, to change the lives of children who are being abused, to speak up like you. What's so important is that you weren't sure what was going on, but you kept questioning, and when you heard other voices, you knew it was wrong. And it's so important what you've just said to all those children and helpless people. And it is a shame. You're not alone that your family didn't listen, that they trust the abuser. But you as a small child had nothing to gain, nothing, by complaining. And still your voice went unheard. I promise you, it's not unheard now.
Thank you.
I have one question for you. Are you seeking restitution from Larry Nassar?
No.
We can leave it open. Do you understand what restitution is? Restitution makes you whole. And I know that you need counseling. You've paid for your own counseling. So it's something that I can order to make you financially whole. I understand you may never fully feel whole, but I think you're on your way to healing. But for those needs that you might have, I certainly can order restitution. I don't know anything about the civil case. I've kept myself away from other things that would affect this. I don't know if you're part of that or not. I don't know if that case will live or die. I don't know what the judgment may or may not be. There's no guarantees with that. Restitution, there is a guarantee that if for some reason he has money earns money, inherits money, whatever, it goes to the victims first. So if that's something you would like, I can leave it open so you can think about it.
I'm not interested in any money that would take anything from his children, so no thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Judge, so the record is clear. What I'm going to be displaying on the screen throughout the victim impact statements for those that have given permission and photographs are photographs of the survivors at the time of the abuse. So for the record, I have Kyle's pictures. Our next victim is a minor. She has indicated that she wishes to be public. She is currently 17 years old, and her parents are in the courtroom. If you'd like me to question them to confirm that before I announce her name, I think she's going to be coming up bravely on her own.
All right, she can come on up. Does she have a parent here?
She do.
Could the parent
her
also
mother,
approach?
Yes.
All right. Ma'am, what is your name?
I'm Jessica Tomashow,
Could you state and spell it for the record?
JessicaTomashow.
All right, and you are 17?
Yes,
And you wish to speak?
yes.
All right. As to mom and dad, mom, what is your name? Could you state and spell it?
Yes, Suzanne Tomashow, SuzanneThomashow.
Dad?
Michael Tomashow, Michaelth.
All right, could you both raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to provide will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury? You need to speak.
I do.
I do.
Thank you. You may put your hands down. So you are the parents of the beautiful woman in front of me, correct?
Yes.
I need you to speak up, ma'am.
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
Yes, I am.
And do you give her permission to speak?
Yes, I do.
And you've had an opportunity to speak with her about her face and voice being public and her words?
Yes, we have.
All right. And there's been no force, threat, or coercion or promises made to her in regard to speaking, correct?
Correct.
All right. Thank you. You may stay here with her, or you may have a seat.
And so the media is clear. She has publicly identified her photos on the screen, and I'll let her take questions.
All right. Jessica, are you going to speak or read?
Read.
You're going to read. Okay,
Yes.
just read at a pace that we can understand, not too fast. There's no fire in
Yes.
the building, okay?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Honorable Judge Aquilina, thank you for giving me this opportunity to tell you how Larry Nassar has hurt me and the effect that this has had on my life. I am Jessica Tomashow, also known as Victim A. I was sexually assaulted by Larry Nassar when I was 9 and 12 years old. Today, I am 17 and a senior in high school, and this is my story. My childhood was filled with happiness and love. One of my loves was for gymnastics and for all my teammates in the gym. Gymnastics was a big part of my childhood, and I spent many hours in the gym and at competitions. Though, as you know, with gymnastics, it is a very physically demanding sport and often comes with painful injuries. I remember one of my first injuries, a rib misplacement. This was the first time I heard of Larry Nassar and his reputation. I remember telling my mom that my coaches told me I should see Larry Nassar for my injury, and to my surprise, she knew who he was. She had trained under him when she went to medical school at Michigan State University. One night, my coaches arranged for me to see Nassar after practice to help with my rib injury. Monday nights were when Larry Nassar came to Twist Arts to treat injured team gymnasts. I remember my coaches telling me to go see him, and I was actually quite excited. Then I went into the back room, and that's when everything changed. I was alone in the back room with him. He had me lie down on the table, and he sexually assaulted me. He touched the most innocent places on my body that day. I remember fear and pain and asking myself, what is happening? When it was over, I was so confused. What had he just done to me and why? It was awful and embarrassing. I left and kept the disgusting thing that had just happened to me to myself. 2 years passed. I saw him several times again at his clinic at MSU, always with my mom, and they were normal appointments. Then in 2012, it happened again, right around my 12th birthday. I had a stress fracture in my ankle, and my dad took me to that appointment. Before Nassar assaulted me, we had a great, meaningful conversation about my future. He asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I said, I want to be just like you, a sports medicine doctor. He gave me a gift, a pin from the Olympics, and told me, when you take my place as the new sports medicine doctor for gymnastics, then you can give me back this pin. Nassar then told my dad he had to massage my ankle and it would be okay for him to wait in the waiting room. After he left, Nassar told the medical student to leave the room too. After the room was clear, he did it yet again. He slid his ungloved hand up my leg and back into the most innocent part of my body, and I felt searing pain. For 30 minutes, he inserted his fingers into me and grunted while I lay there terrified. Again, I was confused by what had just happened. He was a trusted doctor, and what he did to me didn't make sense in my child's mind. I didn't tell a soul, and I tried not to think about it anymore, but my dream of becoming a sports medicine doctor ended that day. Along with my happy and trusting self, he had broken me. I lived the next several years in limbo. Being sexually assaulted has changed me into an anxious teen, but I did not know that I had been abused, and that was the source of my anxiety. I no longer felt safe, and I had problems with trust. My parents took me to a psychiatrist and a therapist when I was in 9th grade, and this helped. I was diagnosed with and treated for social anxiety disorder and saw a therapist on a weekly basis, but did not have insight into the cause. In the 7th and 8th grade, I felt extremely uncomfortable around my male teachers. I avoided them, I hated talking to them, and I would feel panic if I was ever alone with them in a room. Back then, I didn't understand why I felt this way because all my peers loved our teachers. But being assaulted affected my relationship with my teachers, and my anxiety was so intense that it made it hard to focus and learn at school. I also developed an intense fear of male hands, like a PTSD response. Now I get flashbacks when I see male hands, and it makes me feel scared and threatened. This fear changed the way I grew up and how I related to boys. I did not want to hold hands or ever be close to my guy friends. I couldn't be just a normal girl anymore, and I have forever lost a big piece of my childhood due to his abuse. When the first Indy Star article came out, my life changed. I put the pieces together and realized I was molested by Larry Nassar. I thought back to my appointments with him and could still feel what my 9 and 12-year-old self felt then, alone, scared, and in pain. I wanted to puke. I could feel his hands touching me, and that was the first time I had my first flashback. And to this day, I still have them. The flashbacks are paralyzing. I had one just 2 weeks ago at school and could barely get out of my seat. Thankfully, I was able to stop my brain and went to the office. I cried for an hour, shaking with fear. I would like to say something to my abuser, Larry Nassar. You took advantage of my innocence and trust. You were my doctor, and I trusted you, and you took complete advantage of that. Why? I used to ask myself that question all the time, especially while I was laying in bed crying myself to sleep. What you did to me was so twisted. You manipulated me and my entire family. How dare you? You had no right to do that, and because of your decision to molest me, you have caused so much pain in my life. And for the rest of my life, I'm going to have to heal from what you did. Your Honor, I understand the plead guidelines are for a minimum sentence range to 25 to 40 years, and I ask you to give Larry Nassar a 40-year minimum to a 125-year maximum sentence for what he did to me. I also ask on behalf of what he did to over 100 other girls. We are all suffering, having flashbacks, unable to have normal relationships, crying at night, feeling broken, and our lives have been forever changed. He is a predator, and he can't be stopped unless he is behind bars for the rest of his life. Thank you.
Are you asking for restitution?
Undecided right now.
Okay, I'm going to leave restitution open. I'm going to decide how long. It may be 6 months, it may be a year, I'm not sure. During that time, you can ask for it, and then as bills come forward, you give them to the prosecutor's office or the crime victim's office. I'm not sure who's going to receive them at this point, but you'll be advised.
Okay.
And then if there's any dispute, I'll decide how much, but once it's open, it'll remain open during any necessary treatment, and it sounds like you've had some and it will continue.
Yes.
But let me just say that I know what you're all asking for. This isn't my first rodeo with this kind of situation, so to speak, but the vastness of it is very different. You are very brave, especially at 17.
Thank you.
And you talk about being broken. Well, he's going to break while you're healing. And I believe that he will remain broken,
Yes.
more broken than he was as he committed these crimes against all of you, because only a broken person can do such a vile thing. So you need to understand that you're strong, you're going to get healthy, and that you are not broken, you are strong, you're mending.
Yes, thank you.
And you are the voice of so many young people. And I probably will say this 90 times, 98 times, 100 times, however many people. I can't say it enough because it's so important what you all are doing to come here to show victims that you're not a victim any longer. There should be no victims. You have a voice and you are strong. So don't let this define you,
Yes.
any of you. Go out and do great things in the world. You have just started a great rippling effect of greatness. So I thank you for being here.
Thank
and let
you.
me know what those receipts are, okay?
Okay, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
Judges, for the record, I know that Jessica's mother wrote a victim impact statement, and I believe that's in the binder that we presented.
It is.
Her sister will also be speaking tomorrow, and I know her mother also presented a statement on that, so I'll remind you of that.
Okay.
The next victim, Judge, is a minor, and she wishes to remain anonymous. So I would ask that the media turn the cameras off at the request of that victim.
So as to face and voice.
As to face, voice, recording, dissemination, everything, yes.
Okay. Now for dissemination.
That's
So that is Lansing, Michigan. It is the sentencing hearing for Larry Nassar. He's the former doctor for USA Gymnastics. And what we've been listening to are victim impact statements, young women who are coming forward talking about the trauma they underwent after being victims of sexual assault by Larry Nassar. The reason that they turned it down is because the next person to give that statement is a minor. The young lady right before was also a minor. She was 17, but she was willing to speak publicly. In this case, the next victim wants to keep her anonymity. So we're going to pull out from this hearing, but of course we will return and we will give you the news as it warrants. For now, though, we're going to take a quick break. You're watching CBSN.